Hello, I'm Carlton Van Putten, founder and CEO of PayRent. Welcome to the Keys to Success podcast, where we unlock the secrets to smarter investments, smoother tenant management, and bigger profits, one episode at a time. Ready to master your property game? Let's dive in.
Welcome to Keys to Success, your shortcut to understanding what really matters. Ever found yourself tangled up thinking about ending a lease, whether you're a landlord or a renter? Well, today we're unlocking the essentials of lease termination. Think of this as your quick guide to getting it right.
Exactly. We've looked through quite a bit of material focusing on these termination letters. Our goal is really to boil it down for you. Whether you're the landlord needing that property back smoothly or the renter who's, moving on, we want to help you handle this confidently and avoid any messy situations.
Okay, let's dive right in then. What exactly is a lease termination letter? Sounds simple, but what's its actual job for both sides?
Right. So at its core, it's a formal piece of paper. It's communication saying, hey, we intend to end this rental agreement. It creates that official record. And, it's important to understand how it's different from an eviction notice.
Ah, okay, good point. How so?
Well, a termination letter is usually just about ending the lease as agreed or, according to the terms. An eviction notice, that's typically because someone's broken the rules, like not paying rent or something.
So termination is like our time's up, whereas eviction is more you messed up.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. It clarifies the reason for the end of tenancy.
Got it. So if you're drafting one of these letters, landlord or tenant, what absolutely has to be in there? What are the non-negotiables?
Okay, several key things. First, the termination date. Crystal clear. When does the tenancy actually end? Second, you need to mention the required notice period. How much warning are you good? This usually comes from the lease or local law.
Right, the timing. Makes sense. What else?
You should briefly state the reason for ending the lease. Doesn't have to be super detailed, but context helps. And then the basics. Tenant's full name, landlord's full name, the property address, the full address.
Okay, names, address, date, notice period, reason. Anything else vital?
Yes, contact info, phone number, email for both parties. Crucial for any follow-up questions, and maybe this sounds obvious, but the tone. Keep it respectful, professional. It really can head off a lot of potential arguments later. Just, keep it civil.
Keep it businesslike, not personal.
Got it.
Got it. Now, you mentioned local laws. Why is sticking to those regulations so important here?
Oh, legal compliance is everything. Look, a lease is a legal contract, right? So there are rules, local, state laws designed to protect both the landlord and the tenant. You can't just ignore them.
So where do you start? The lease itself.
Absolutely. First stop, read your lease agreement again, carefully. Look for any clauses about termination notice period, specific conditions, maybe early termination rules. A lot of disputes honestly just come from people not understanding what their own lease says or what the local law mandates.
So the lease might have its own specific rules on top of the general law.
Exactly. And then you layer on the local and state landlord-tenant laws. They set minimum notice periods, for instance. If you don't give the right amount of notice, whether you're the landlord or the tenant, you could face legal trouble, fines, maybe even court.
Okay, that sounds serious. What if someone's just not sure? Like the legalese is confusing.
Yeah, it definitely can be. If you're unsure about any of the legal stuff, the smartest move is always to talk to a legal professional, someone who specializes in landlord-tenant law in your area.
Get some proper advice.
Definitely. Don't guess. Trying to save a few bucks by skipping legal advice when you're uncertain, that could cost you way more down the road.
Sound advice. Okay, so we know what it is, why the legal side matters. Let's get practical. How do you actually write an effective letter? Step by step.
Right. Crafting it. Focus on clarity, professionalism. Use a standard business letter format. Header with both addresses, yours and theirs, and the date.
Like a formal letter you learned in school.
Pretty much. Formal salutation. Dear Mr. M. Smith. Or Dear Tenant Landlord, using their name. Then the body, polite closing, signature. Keep it clean.
And in the body, what's the absolute key message?
The main thing is a clear, direct statement. I am writing to inform you that I intend to terminate the lease agreement for the property located at address. No beating around the bush. And state the proposed move-out date very clearly. The exact date you plan to leave or expect the tenant to leave.
Be explicit.
Yes. And referencing the original lease, like the start and end dates, can help avoid confusion. If there's an early termination clause involved, mention that too.
Good point. Connect it back to the original agreement. What about money stuff? Specifically, the security deposit. That's often a big worry for renters.
Huge point. The letter should mention the original security deposit amount paid. If you're the tenant, you can include instructions on where you want the deposit sent back to. And it's good for everyone to know the time frame for getting that deposit back varies a lot. By law, could be like 14 days, could be 60 days.
So manage expectations there.
Exactly. And for landlords, putting clear move-out instructions in the letter, expectations about cleaning, keys, that sort of thing, can really help prevent fights over the deposit later. Actually, platforms like Parent are working on trying to, smooth out these landlord-renter interactions, which can only help.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so clarity up front avoids headaches later. Let's think about why leases end. What are some common situations landlords and renters face?
Several common ones. The simplest is just the end of a fixed-term lease. It runs its course on the date agreed. If the tenant isn't renewing, they send a letter. But interestingly, landlords often also have to send notice, even if the lease is just ending naturally, saying they don't intend to renew.
Really? Even if the end date is right there in the contract?
Yeah, in many places. It prevents assumptions like the lease automatically becoming month to month. Clears things up for both sides.
Okay. What else?
Lease violations are another big one. Tenants always late with rent or causing major damage. The landlord might issue a termination notice for cause, and sometimes, though less common with a simple termination letter, a tenant might terminate if the landlord isn't keeping up their end major repairs needed, that kind of thing. But that often involves a different notice process.
Right, violations are a clear trigger. What about just life happening? Can a renter end a lease early for personal reasons?
Yes, that happens all the time. Job relocation, maybe sudden financial hardship. A renter would send an early termination letter explaining why. But, and this is a big but, for renters, breaking a lease early often comes with costs. Check the lease. You might owe rent until a new tenant is found, or pay a specific fee.
So not always a free pass to just leave.
Okay.
Once the letter is perfectly written, how do you make sure it gets there and is acknowledged? Sending it seems important too.
Delivery is just as crucial as the content. First, timing. You have to give that proper notice period we talked about, usually 30 to 90 days.
Yeah.
But please check your lease and local laws. It can change based on why you're terminating. Ending for a violation might have a shorter notice than ending at term, for example.
No assumptions on the timeline. Always verify. What about actually physically sending it? Email. Regular mail.
The gold standard, really, is certified mail with return receipt requested.
Why is that?
Because it gives you proof. Proof it was mailed, proof it was received. That piece of paper, that receipt, can be incredibly important if there's any disagreement down the line.
Okay, proof of delivery. Smart.
And always keep a copy of the letter you sent for your own files. Documentation is your friend here. Saves a lot of potential trouble.
Certified mail. Keep copies. Got it. What are some classic mistakes, the big trip-ups people should really try to avoid?
Well, we touched on tone getting emotional or unprofessional. That's a big one. Another is just missing key info, forgetting the exact move-out date or maybe the full address. Simple stuff, but it causes confusion. And the biggest one, probably, is not following the legal rules. Wrong notice period, wrong delivery method. That can invalidate the whole notice.
So stick to facts, be complete, follow the rules. Seems straightforward when you lay it out. Let's dig a bit more into that legal side. We know it's complex. What are the absolute must-know legal points?
Okay, deeper dive on legal. It really boils down to local and state landlord-tenant laws. They dictate notice periods, delivery methods, yes, but also they often list the acceptable reasons for termination, especially if it's before the lease naturally ends. Landlords can't just terminate for any reason or a discriminatory one.
Right, there have to be valid grounds. What if a tenant doesn't leave after getting a proper notice?
Then the landlord has to follow the formal legal eviction process specific to their state. They absolutely cannot do things like change the locks or throw belongings out. That's illegal self-help eviction. Big trouble.
A very defined legal path landlords must take. What about protections for renters during this?
Renters have clear rights. The right to proper notice, as we've said. the right to get their security deposit back, minus any legitimate deductions for damage beyond normal wear and tear within a specific time frame. And critically, protection against discrimination. You can't terminate a lease based on race, religion, family status, disability, etc. That's illegal.
Okay.
And remember, for tenants, breaking that lease without a legally valid reason, that can mean lawsuits for unpaid rent or a hit to their credit score. It cuts both ways. The lease is binding.
It really underscores that the lease is a serious legal agreement for both parties. Okay, let's try to wrap this up. If you had to give the absolute key takeaways for both landlords and renters, what would they be?
Number 1, clear professional communication, always. Number 2, understand your legal duties. That means knowing your lease inside out and knowing your local laws. Number 3, be respectful. Even if it's a difficult situation, make sure that letter has all the essentials: date, reason, if needed, contact info. Use certified mail for proof. Keep copies.
Good summary. Communication, legal awareness, respect, documentation.
Exactly. And remember, this chat is a good overview, but if your situation feels complicated or if you're just unsure, get that specific legal advice. It's often worth it.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully this gives everyone listening, whether you're managing properties or renting one, a clearer path for handling lease terminations. Does this spark any more questions for you, thinking about it all? Any specific scenarios popping into your head now?
Yeah, actually. It makes you think about the lease itself, doesn't it? How crucial it is to have clear termination language in the lease agreement from day one. How can landlords and renters work together at the start of a tenancy to make sure those clauses are really clear and fair, maybe preventing issues down the road? What proactive steps could they take?
That's a great point. Thinking ahead right from the beginning, definitely something for our listeners to ponder. Keep exploring those ideas, keep learning, and join us next time on Keys to Success as we unlock another key to navigating the world around you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Keys to Success. I invite you to check out past episodes and follow us on your favorite podcast platform to get notified when new ones are released. And when you're ready to simplify managing your properties, be sure to visit us at www.payrent.com.